Welcome, everyone, to Ladder Daily Digest. We interview creators and we honor and we promote them. And today we're going to have some special guests on. But at first, I'd like to introduce everybody to Kevin Hinckley. He just missed being the president and prophet of the church because he was descended on the wrong line. Family. And so it's nice to have you, Kevin. Thank you very much for coming on our show and helping out.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
And so I'd like to introduce our guests from the Utah Interfaith Forum, Monica and Steve. Welcome, you guys, to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So everybody knows Steve. Some people know me, and some people know Kevin, but I don't know if very many people know Monica in the podcast world. Do very many people know you, Monica?
I think it just depends on what area you're looking at, what channel.
Okay, so let's introduce you as if you're the only one here. Ooh. And we'll just forget Steve for now, but everybody can still look at Steve because we want people to be attracted to our show, and everybody's attracted to Steve, so we'll keep him there. So Monica, tell us a little bit about your where you grew up and significant things you did as like a teenager or whatever, and life changes and stuff like that, just so that we get a look at who you are.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Mesa, Arizona, which was amazing. I loved it there. When I visit, it still feels like home. So great place. And what I did as a teenager, I really loved to have fun. It was just engagement and going and loving my friends and, doing crazy teenage things.
So you went to like Mesa Temple pageants as a little girl?
Oh, yeah. Loved
it. An annual thing, or did you just hit or miss whether you guys went?
Hit or miss for us. We lived, 5 minutes from it, but I think when you live there, sometimes you just get so used to it, you don't always partake of the goodness. So
I actually attended one about 7 years ago, and I met somebody from my youth that was there, and I said, "Hi, how you doing?" And her name was Dora Lee Hinckley. So there you go.
There you go.
And so let's see. So did you go to college right out of high school?
So yes, I did. I attended college in St. George, Utah. Got my degree in interior design. That's something that I loved my whole life. So that was always on the table for me. I didn't have to think about what I wanted to be when I grew up. I knew my whole life.
Did the name of your college change recently?
Unfortunately, it did.
The other college.
Unfortunately.
And are they like the Thunderbirds now or something? What's the new?
No, they are.
What's the new name of the college? Is it Utah Tech or is that the other one? It's Utah Tech. I took a picture of it the other day. I mean, not the other day, a few months ago, and I can't remember what it's called. But
I'm grateful there's still a big D on the mountain. At least
that's
with the heritage of the area. So that's good. So did that. That's where I met my husband. And then when we got married, we immediately moved to Hawaii and dove into that culture and all the cultures that are there. It's not just one culture. When you're at BYU Hawaii, he played basketball there. We absolutely loved our time there. The people, learning, growing, all the amazing things of the people of the Pacific Islands.
So did you enjoy Poi?
I'm not a Poi fan. No, couldn't be converted. A lot of other things that we did like, but mostly just the people. They're amazing.
And then there's the cultural center there.
Yes. Polynesian Cultural Center is right there, BYU Hawaii. And then just to the other side of that is the Laie Temple. So it's a great little area to be.
So your husband got drafted by the NBA. By which team? No, I'm just kidding.
No, after that, we moved back to Utah and we've lived here ever since. So that's about 28 years.
Wow. Southern Utah County.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Well, nice to meet you. And how did you meet Steve?
Oh, well, we have a common friend. And that friend reached out to me one day and said, Monica, I have a friend that wants a tour of the Orem Temple. Can you make it work? And so we jumped on that. I think we had it scheduled and ready in 2 days.
Mm-hmm. I was in Utah at the time. And I actually reached out to David Boyce of 52 Churches in 52 Weeks because Monica gave him a tour and also gave Jeff McCullough of Hello Saints a tour of the temple.
Right.
And
So
I was
Steve
like,
had
I'm in Utah. I was in
tour
Utah
and
last
envy.
November, and I was there for the Bickertonite baptism. And I contacted David. I'm like, hey, is there any chance you could reach out to your contact? And that's how we met. And then I had Monica come on my program to talk about the tour. And then I was like, afterwards, I was like, I need a co-host for my Utah Interfaith Forum. Would you be interested? And of course, Monica told me at that moment that she had always dreamed of having a Utah channel. Isn't that correct? A YouTube channel. Isn't that correct, Monica?
Oh, that's so far.
The least thing in your mind, right?
This is the farthest from any desire I have ever had in my life. But here we are. We've done some awesome stuff. We've had some wonderful interviews, and we hope that it just helps bring unity and connection and understanding to religions and people of faith. And let's just, all get together and enjoy our time together and love each other.
So Kevin, is there anything about Monica you'd like to know?
I guess the question that I would have is when you think about interfaith connections, what is there about interfaith that drew you in?
Well,
enough that Steve would say she's the lady.
I'm still wondering why he said she's the lady. Out of everyone he knows a lot of people. But growing up in Mesa, there is a good amount of Latter-day Saints there. I mean, buildings in every
Happy Valley South.
Similar to maybe what you'd find in some areas of Utah. But it is intermingled with a lot of other people of other faiths. And that's what I grew up in. So most of my neighbors were of other faiths. Most of my friends growing up were of other faiths. And so that, to me, as Stephen and I say, interfaithing, right? It wasn't necessarily interfaithing. It was just living life. So these people were my friends. I learned from them. I grew from them. Absolutely loved them. And I loved learning and seeing different ways of worship. And it's just been with me ever since. It's not a big deal to me. I love it. So it's just in me. And here we are.
I would have a question on that. And maybe this is for farther down the line, but I think that's interesting in that it says that part of our goal as Latter-day Saints, as opposed to evangelizing, is connecting, and that's a different flavor. That's a different approach of saying, how do we find the common parts of our faith, as opposed to finding the differences and then challenging those differences with a goal towards conversion.
Right. I would say that most of my interactions throughout my life has not been to convert anybody, just to be real and be friends. And if they happen to see something that touches their lives, then something will happen. And I have had several people get baptized just from being my friend. But I'd love them forever, no matter what, because that was never my goal. But
That's right. I want to know how Monica has the keys to the Orem Temple. That's what I want to know.
I don't have the keys, but I have connections to those who do.
She knows people.
Yeah. So just with my calling within the church, I have connections and I can reach out to say, hey, I have this inquiry or this request that I'd like to try and make happen. What can we do? And I just work with people that can pull those things together and make them happen.
Terrific.
That's right. And everyone who knows Steve know that Steve's had a little bit of some health issues lately. So Steve, why don't you give us an update on how things are going for you?
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So, and part of the reason actually originally, because Monica and I have actually taped like 8 or 10 episodes for the channel. And for a while, we're going to probably do simulcast on both MBR and the new Utah Interfaith Forum channel. And originally, we probably would have started the channel up in April, but then I came down with this condition that has essentially caused me to be bedridden for like a month and a half, 2 months. And I've always had a little bit of tinnitus throughout the years, but I woke up one morning and my ear was clogged with wax and it was ringing. And even after having the ear wax removed, the ringing actually got worse. And so I had this team of doctors that have been a psychiatrist who specializes in tinnitus, and a team of about 4 different doctors and audiologists that have been helping me because I have a pretty severe case of tinnitus in my one ear, and it was debilitating. And essentially, I couldn't even talking, brushing my teeth, shaving, showering, going outside. It was an assault of the senses, and it was really bad. And I have to say that, in the course of me building this community a little over 3 years ago with MBR, most people, when they suffer alone and in solitude. And having this network of people throughout the world to reach out to me and just say, hey, we're praying for you, give me, send me postcards in the mail, just words of encouragement, really kept me going. I really feel like it's important to, because I have this platform, and I am currently suffering from this condition as we are speaking, but being able to realize that this is called hypoacusis, and essentially what it is I'm losing hearing in this ear, and my doctor equated it to phantom limb syndrome, where your leg's been amputated, but your toe is itching or it's hurting because all those nerve endings are still there in the leg. Well, with hearing loss, what happens is you still have those nerve endings in your brain, and people don't realize. And so what the brain is actually trying to help me by magnifying the sound. So the sound itself is coming from the brain. So it's just learning how to train your brain to ignore it. And I'm on 50 milligrams of Zoloft. I mean, I was on 25 milligrams of Zoloft and almost immediately got help. And it usually takes, like, doctor, it takes like 4 to 6 weeks for Zoloft to help you. But because I'm so healthy, I'm never sick, I don't take any medication. Just within a few days of me taking Zoloft, I already started noticing a difference. And so for those of you who are suffering, especially from tinnitus, I just want to let you know there's resources out there. Look for a local tinnitus support group, whether it's an online community or a local community. I have a tinnitus support group that just got started up right before I started my condition. It was a lifesaver. I don't know where I'd be if it wasn't for the tinnitus support group and the great doctors. I mean, I have like the cell phone numbers I had one of the doctors call me at 10 o'clock at night to check in on me because he was heading out of town. I mean, these people recognize the seriousness of the condition. So Friday was, and I don't mean to blabber, but Friday was the first time I've been to a doctor in 20 plus years, because I'm never sick, So I finally got to a doctor because basically my psychiatrist went to me and he said, Steve, he says, you don't look 50 years old. But he said, but you're 50 years old. And with age comes, you start having health conditions. And it's like, you need to start taking care of yourself. And so it's like, okay, so I went to the doctor on Friday, and then I went to my ENT yesterday. They had an opening. They got me in. We're going to get MRIs. We're going to do some blood work. It's essentially, this condition is caused by either a virus or something with my autoimmune condition. So it's just a very crazy situation. And, I have to say that I've suffered, many of you know my story. I've suffered depression for most of my life since middle school. And once I started the channel and started building this community, the depression started healing. I mean, I tell people, I said, when I went on Mormon Stories a year after I started my channel and was on for a full week, I told my story right there, and it was impactful. And I thought it would be much more emotional for me. But I realized when I did this whole thing, as I was telling my life story, that I was healed. That it was just good to finally tell my story. And then a year ago, I quit taking my meds for depression because it's just like, I don't need this anymore. So here I am suffering with this horrible condition, but it was because I had suffered horrible depression most of my life. This was nothing. It was like, I had it much worse back then than I have now. So it kind of made my ability to cope with it, even though I had my down days and stuff. I had hope, and then the support group has just been really awesome. So that's where I'm at now. That's why we haven't released anything. I've been just getting MBR back on track. I had to essentially
Steve, I was just going to say, thanks everyone for watching This Week in Health at the Mayo Clinic. No, I'm just kidding. Okay,
Yeah.
so tell us about your show that you've got going now.
Yeah, and so so now I got MBR back up and running, and now I can start focusing on the Utah Interfaith Forum channel. And it was really great because it all started with this Facebook group that was started on Facebook called the Utah Interfaith Forum, and it was built up really quickly. And the guy who founded it reached out to me and says, "I'm handing over this organization to you." I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because I set up this forum." And what we did was we modeled everything that you're doing on your channel is how we modeled how this group on Facebook's going to operate. And at that moment, I realized, oh, I guess I'm doing interfaith. I never thought of my endeavor as being interfaith until he pointed out that this. And so every episode I do on MBR is an interfaith endeavor for the most part. And so I felt like, well, I got this big group on Facebook. Why don't I do a YouTube channel? Let's birth a YouTube channel out of it. So that's kind of been that was the inspiration for starting the channel.
Yeah, the story I heard was that Angel Moroni told the Utah Interfaith guy to turn it over to you. That's what I heard. I don't know. It could have been a story that just got bigger and bigger, right?
I love it.
So Monica, how's it been working with Steve so far?
Oh, it's been great. I love Steven. Love him. So we've connected while I've been in Florida. It was great to be with him and just see his little area of the world. And we've been able to do some good stuff, I think. So hopefully it will just be continuous from here, that we can connect with a lot of faiths and believers of all religions in Utah, and any really that tie into Utah. Even they don't have to be located in Utah.
Right.
But we can do some good stuff. And I think for both Stephen and I, that our biggest thing is to let them tell their story of their beliefs, not for us to sit there and talk. I mean, we add our questions and our insights, but I love learning from them about what they believe, instead of, going to a YouTube channel and learning from someone else that is not of that faith. I love hearing directly from those who are of, that attend the Krishna temple, that attend the Buddhist temple, that are Presbyterian, Methodist, Catholic, non-denominational. I love hearing it from them, and it's the best.
And I have to say that Monica really has grabbed the bull by the horns. She caught the vision of this channel, and really she's been the one that's lined up all the interviews and the guests and everything like that. This is a collaboration between the two of us. This isn't Steve Pynakker's Utah Interfaith Forum channel. No, this is as much Monica's as it is mine. In many ways, it's probably more Monica's than it is mine. And so I really want to just honor Monica for the great job she's done. The fantastic guests that we've had have been wonderful, and just a diverse group from Jewish rabbis to Protestant evangelicals, to just any people who work at the church office building, who the chaplain for the church, work in the chaplaincy program. We've done these great interviews, and I'm really excited to get them out there, because it's just been wonderful and to be able to engage kind of a little outside of just Mormonism. It doesn't just have to be Mormonism with me. The UIF kind of gives me the opportunity to branch out a little bit and maybe have guests on I wouldn't normally have on MBR. But I just want to thank Monica. Really, it wouldn't be here without her. So,
Steve, I've got a question. At what point, as this is coming together, do you feel like that's a success, where you go, that's exactly what I was hoping would be accomplished? What are those moments that tell you, yep, we arrived, we made it?
Oh, okay. Well, so, it's funny because, I think I want to just broaden this out a little bit, because, my channel, Mormon Book Reviews, nobody knew who I was 3 years ago. And I tell people, I said, I just had this tiny little channel where I was just going to review the books in my bookcase. And it's just a tiny little bookcase. And I thought maybe I'd get 200, 300 subscribers, and I just have this niche channel. There was a guy that had LDS book reviews, and he had and I was gunning for him. He had like 200 subscribers. I thought, boy, if I could have that, pass him up, I've made it, right?
And you were just going to do it as a labor of love.
Labor of love. And then next thing you know, within weeks of starting the channel, I'm talking to John DeLynn when I had 23 subscribers on Reddit. I'm like, how does this happen? And then the next day, Sandra Tanner makes a friend request to me on Facebook. I'm like, what? And it within 2 to 3 weeks of me starting the channel, I realized, oh, I've got something special here. And
Is
then,
that because you got Richard Bushman on early?
I think it was interesting because by the time I had invited Richard Bushman to come on the program, I had already interviewed Matt Harris, was my second guest. I had lined up John Hamer. I was talking to Don Bradley. So I was already talking to people before when I had like 20 subscribers. And
so you talked to John DeLynn before you talked to Richard Bushman?
Yeah. Now I will tell you, the first time I talked to John DeLynn on the phone was when I announced that I had interviewed interviewed Richard Bushman, and John DeLynn's on the phone with me, like, how in the world did you get Richard Bushman on your channel? Right. That was the first conversation I ever had with him. And, so I guess for me, it's, the unique, so starting MBR, it was like, okay, relatively soon I knew I had something really special. And I felt like last September, when I was given the Utah Interfaith Forum forum group by this Latter-day Saint, it was like, wow, like when he said, I modeled this group after what you're doing with MBR. And I thought, man, like, I'm having an impact. The channel's having an impact on people's lives. And I hear from people throughout the world all the time telling me how much that their lives are changed, hearing my story and all this kind of stuff. And so I was like, wow, like I was really honored and privileged. And I thought, well, I'm a YouTube guy, so why don't I do a second YouTube channel? Because I had thought about doing a secondary YouTube channel in the past anyhow. And so I think really honestly, we haven't arrived yet with UIF because we really haven't released anything. Now, I did do an interview with David Boyce of 52 Churches that got like 6,000 views. I happened to release that right about the time that David Boyce was I didn't know it at the time, but at the time that David Boyce was being baptized into the church is the time that I released that interview on Utah Interfaith Forum. And I did the math. I was like, oh my gosh, it was like within the same hour. And then I find out, and then all of a sudden it was weird because it was just doing okay, because I only had like 400 something subscribers, but around 11 or 12 o'clock at night, it explodes. So I later find out that David went on Instagram and talked about being baptized into the church. And so then it exploded. So that video, for a tiny channel, I have 6,000 views. That was really huge. So that kind of, if you could say, that was kind of the first impact that channel had. And I imagine that when we start doing these interviews, and we're going to start off maybe just doing like, where I'm not going to be like doing 3 episodes a week like I do with MBR, but we're going to probably do like maybe once a month. Maybe we'll go every 2 weeks at some point, and we're going to release these interviews. I think these are really, really important interviews that we did. And I think it just goes to show that, especially right now where we have the political discourse of this country, where it's gone. And we recently saw what just happened this weekend where an assassination attempt was done on Donald Trump. Maybe that causes there to be a reset. I doubt it. I really think it's still going to be nasty. But I really feel like it's important that we can model a civil discourse amongst people that don't agree with each other, which is what we do at MBR all the time. And I think that UIF operates under the same principles of just trying to get people to talk to each other and not try to attack each other and stuff like that. We had Rabbi Joe Carnes on, and he talked about how he was at General Conference, and he went to go talk to the protesters, the evangelical protesters who protest outside. And he said, Steve, they were nasty, so nasty. And so I do feel, in particular, as an evangelical Christian, where for 200 years, the evangelicals and the Latter-day Saints have been at war with each other.
Very much.
That just, it's the symbolism of an evangelical doing what I'm doing is really, really important. And I'm just trying to show, and I'm trying to get, some evangelicals have embraced my vision. Others attack me. And I just don't let that affect me, because I'm like, well, those are the same nasty people that are outside holding their signs, making fun of Latter-day Saints. That's who's attacking me. And I think it's really important that the Latter-day Saints see another side of evangelical Christians you see like me and Jeff McCullough and others, Dr. Kyle Bashirs, who are having adult conversations with the Restoration and civil discourse, which I think more now than ever is so vital for us to have.
Does it feel like that's partly a mission there of saying this is not what it means to be evangelical?
I think that
to be nasty and attacking.
I think what happened was, I tell people, I said, and I actually, my pastor interviewed me a few months ago, and actually I have the interview on my channel, and I commented about how the evangelical church betrayed its birthright as a prophetic people. We traded our birthright as a prophetic people for raw political power. And as a result...
Like in the 80s?
Yeah, well, and again, the progressive churches did it in the 60s. They went political. And then, of course, the right always reacts to the left. And so now what we have is the progressive Christians are politicized, which they've been before the evangelicals, and the evangelicals are politicized. And as a result, if in many cases, depending on who you voted for, is really a test of fellowship in these churches. And I think that's terrible. You know, I've been to progressive churches and I'm like, man, this is like a political rally. I'm not interested in this at all. And then I've been to evangelical churches where it's just one big Trump thing. And I'm just like, that's not me. I found a church that is going a different direction. It's part of the new evangelical movement. And I'm proud to be attached to that. I do think that there's a change going on. There are evangelicals who are very concerned about the direction of our community. And I really feel like people even going, I thought about quitting even using the term evangelical because of all the nastiness that these people were throwing at me. And then I happened to go to my first church service at the Harvest in Sarasota, and they had Tim Whitaker of the New Evangelicals podcast come on there. He flew in from New Jersey. And I realized right there, as I grabbed the microphone, the first person to ask a question, and I said, I'm a gay evangelical Mormon YouTuber, Mormon podcaster. And there are most evangelical churches, if I went and grabbed the microphone, I would not be greeted by the smiles on the faces of the congregation that I was received from there. So it was really important to recognize that even for me, this is part of my faith journey. Being an atheist for 13 years, getting back into faith right around COVID times, and having a much more nuanced, compassionate view of people that are different than you. And I think that we're all othering each other. And I think that it's nasty. And look, I have a friend who told me, says, I can't be friends with somebody that votes for Trump. And I thought, what a sad place to put you in. And he's like, well, because Trump's a racist. And I'm thinking like, well, basically you've written off half of Americans. You hate more people than the racists do. And I didn't say that, but in one sense, that's where hatred comes in. And it makes you bitter and angry that you can't even conceive of being friends with somebody to vote for Trump. And I try to explain to him, like, look, have some empathy. There's a reason why people voted for Trump. I said, I always use West Virginia as my example. In the 1990s, the state that supported Bill Clinton, the highest was West Virginia. Fast forward to 2016 and 2020, what is the state that was the most supportive of Donald Trump? It was West Virginia. So here you had this transition from rural poor folk went from the Democrats to the Republicans. Well, what happened? Well, what happened was Bill Clinton gave us NAFTA. And what NAFTA did was it essentially decimated the entire Midwest industrial manufacturing base. And what was replaced? Well, Big Pharma comes in and gets all these people hooked onto medications. And so now we have fentanyl and meth problems in these communities. These are devastated communities that had a factory town, and Bubba betrayed the very working class that he was supposedly helping. And that's why those people felt betrayed by the Democrat Party and became Trump supporters. Now, if you can't have empathy for people that have basically been, shafted by the Democrats, if you can't have empathy and understanding why they would vote for Trump, that's why. These are traumatized people. And I'm not going to hate on traumatized people. There's a reason why they voted for Trump. I'm not defending Trump, but I understand and have empathy for people who voted for Trump.
That's right. Thanks for watching This Week in Politics now. Anyway, Monica, How has your life changed since meeting Steve?
Or could we add one more nuance to that? How is your life changed as you begin kind of interfaith and reaching out? How?
Yeah, a broader question.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's something I've been doing my whole life, so I don't know that it's changed a ton. Even before I received this calling, it was something I was already doing within my stake with children and helping them understand that there's other people out there that believe differently and also have similar connections. And there's people that are out there that are in need. So we need to serve them via nonprofits. And so this was just kind of a love of people anyway. And so this calling has just kind of accelerated my life and the things I was already doing. And it's always so beautiful. And there's a lot of emotions that come with this because you start to learn so much about other people. And, you know, there's more compassion and empathy and love and understanding, some heartache that you feel for others along their journey. And so I think that's the biggest thing that I've had to adjust to is, you know, how do I process all of this good, all of this love? If you're looking for the right things, that's what you'll have to process. I'd rather process that than need to process hate. Because that hate will wear you down until you're broke. Love, it might weigh on you for a little bit, but there's always a way to work through that and understand that. And I think the more I'm in it, this really makes sense. I just found this in some of my notes the other day, and it says, the enemy creates division, God creates unity. So if I am supposed to be a representative of God and Jesus Christ, I need to bring unity. I should not be bringing division. And hopefully none of us that believe in Christ are bringing division. That would not be his way.
But isn't that interesting how you end up having to say, I may have to be balancing dogma against relationship. And if my dogma is preventing relationships, then maybe I need to re-examine my dogma a little bit. In favor of that idea of, at the end of the day, it's, you know, how people know you're a follower of Christ? Well, you love one another, and that doesn't say just love people like me.
Right. Oh, yeah.
That relationship is expansive.
I love that they're not like me. Yeah. That's the key point. They teach me so much, you know. I was just thinking about this the other day. I have a friend that lives in Park City. She's of another faith, and we went out to lunch one day, and she's like, let's bless the food first. Number one, great example right there, right? She just pauses to pray, but her prayer was beautiful. And I've discussed this on another podcast, how prayer is so unique, and we need varied versions of prayer to help us all be better and learn, right? Because we can get stuck in a rut of how we pray. But I love the uniqueness of people and the intricacies of belief and finding where our connections are. But I also love understanding their differences. That doesn't offend me in any way. And why
being able to love their differences without having to sacrifice the things that are most important to you.
I don't feel I have to sacrifice anything.
That's right.
And I don't want them to sacrifice anything either. I want them to be truthful in what they're sharing, because that's the only way it's real. So, you know, I had dinner with the managers of the Krishna temple in Spanish Fork a few weeks ago at their home. And they discussed their beliefs in their God, which is Krishna. And it was amazing to see all the connections and the similarities there. I'm like, oh, I believe that about my God. And it was so great just to sit there and, you know, I don't have my tag on. There's not a video crew there. This is just real connection with friends. And that's the best. And I just loved it. I didn't judge their views on their beliefs, because I think I shared this on one of our interviews, that sharing your religion is kind of like giving someone a gift of the heart, because religion is something that is really part of your heart. And so when they share that, you have to be willing to receive it gracefully and not judge and put that down. That's a very harsh reception to something someone has shared. Really look at it that way. We'd react a little bit differently to others. You know, it would be more like,
especially if we're looking at somebody else through a very small window.
Right. Open your window.
Yeah. Because now you're only seeing a little part there as opposed to all the beauty that's there.
And that doesn't mean change any of your beliefs. That's not what that means.
Absolutely.
Mark Twain is known for saying, travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness, and many of our people need it sorely on these accounts. And now we don't even have to travel. We just have to walk through our neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And we can find diversity.
Yeah. But that's the other thing. I'm friends with the president and CEO of United Way here in Utah. And meeting with him and listening to his knowledge that he shared, it gave me some great insights. We're losing our points of triangulation in society. And the studies done on that are amazing. And the studies were even before COVID and the shutdown. So it's even worse. If they did a study now, I think we'd be in a worse situation. So even though we say go connect, we're not. We are not taking the time to connect with our neighbors, to unite, to learn, to love. That's kind of been pushed to the side. And we a lot of times just think of ourselves instead of others, and more inward focused and outward focused. So,
well, I also think, though, you know, and you're bringing up an interesting point, too, though, that, again, if we're talking to Latter-day Saints, for instance, Latter-day Saints, we've always been focused on get to be friends, and then you're constantly looking for that opportunity to then introduce the missionaries. It's always been that kind of a drive and that kind of a vibe, which really means I'm befriending, but I don't hear anything really that you're bringing to the table, because I've got the one true church here and I have to bring that to you, as opposed to saying, like with Krishnas or Buddhists or anything else, saying, I need to hear what you're saying because of the beauty that you bring, and I can learn and be blessed and be inspired by what you bring, rather than looking for an opportunity to say, and this is why you need to read the Book of Mormon and let me get the missionaries here as quickly as possible. Yeah. And we're missing all of the I realize all the beauty. I had a group that I had at the Vatican just about 2 months ago, and I get a chance to lead groups from time to time. And as we're pulling into the Vatican parking lot, I had this little speech where I'm trying to say, you're going to see a lot of things here, but I want you to appreciate the beauty and the power of believing people over the centuries, what they brought to the table, what they saw, what they believed, the sacrifices that they went to, and what they actually bring. And if you just simply are going to walk in and say, well, there was I don't
believe this, so I'm not going to look for anything good.
Yeah, there wasn't anything good, until this point, as opposed to look at the centuries of believing people that sacrificed for their faith. And what can we learn from them, and how can we be inspired and be better because we were ready?
Stephen and I talked about this in the first interview he did with me when he was learning more about me and the tours we took, right, Stephen? Mm-hmm. And I did bring this up because I attended church in Venice because there wasn't a Latter-day Saint building nearby that worked with our schedule. So we attended Catholic Mass in Italian. And I just remember sitting there and being so grateful for those who had come before me. And when we did attend the Vatican and go through all of their beautiful buildings and learn more about them, you look at their buildings, there's the 12 apostles across the top. absolute gratitude for those who fought for freedom of religion in their own way, in their own time. Because if they didn't, I wouldn't have the ability to have my religion today. Whether I believe what they believe or not, that doesn't matter in this viewpoint. I'm just grateful for those who stood and believed in Christ. I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah, amen.
Why can't we be grateful for that?
Steve, I'd be interested in how you approach this. You know, when you're looking across the table, does it feel like you're sacrificing anything on your side to be able to be more broadly connected to others that are believing differently?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because when I first started the channel, God kind of showed me. He kind of put me in a place where I'm on one side of the street with a group of people holding protest signs.
Yes.
And there's other people on the other side of the street that are holding protest signs in opposition to my group. And God went to me and he's like, those people over there, just remember, no matter what you think of them, just remember that they are fellow image bearers and that they need to be treated as such. So I just kind of look at everybody's being a fellow image bearer, and they're accorded the dignity of their humanity. And so when I say that I'm affirming of the humanity of all of God's children. And I really think it's really important. So that's kind of the approach I took. And then also, you have to understand that my journey back into faith wasn't that long ago. I was a hardcore atheist for a good, 13, 14 years or so. And I was angry at religion, and I was a Christopher Hitchens, Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse type kind of atheist. You know, still Christopher Hitchens is one of the greatest writers of all time. He's one of my favorite writers of all time. He's great. And I was just coming back into faith. And once you've been an atheist for a long time and you come back in, you have a different perception of things, you know? And I even tell people, because I left evangelicalism like 20 years ago. And I tell people, I left the evangelical village 20 years ago and I come back and the village is on fire. So I almost feel like I have a mission to show how evangelicals can engage people that are different than them simply with a Christ-like heart, as opposed to the demonization that we do of other people, the othering that we do. And so I really feel like this is my calling. I think both Monica and I kind of feel like we have lifetime callings, because I've spent my entire life interested in all different religions. Like, I don't know just Mormonism. I know a ton about a lot of different faiths. And I just learned to be more understanding of people with different religious faiths because just by reading about it. But then the cool thing about this endeavor is that I've been able to now meet these people and have them come to I had polygamists come to my house last year and meet my Christian neighbors and my mom. And to me, it's like, I think it's just great to be able to have these types of conversations. So it's all theoretical when we're talking about reading books, like was all I was doing. But then to go to Utah and meet the people and then meet all the different expressions of the restoration, and then being able to talk to all those different expressions. And not only that, get these different groups to talk to each other, which is this channel has done. There are meetings. There are people that have met each other that would not be having conversations with each other if it wasn't for what MBR was able to help facilitate. I opened doors for people. I got people to be able to, that would afforded opportunities and given them an audience they would never had before. And so to me, it's like, it's great because so the whole interfaithing aspect of what I was doing, really honestly, the Utah Interfaith Forum channel is really just another obvious direction that we would go. Because, and I even recognized early on was like, what I'm trying to do is model how it can be done. And I always thought, if I can do evangelical Latter-day Saint modeling of how we can have civil conversations, why can't we broaden this out into the broader political world and other categories as well? So the UIF has been like a great opportunity to demonstrate that we can have these interreligious conversations as well. And, if you're an atheist and you're saying, well, atheists should support what we're doing because most atheists will tell you the cause of most wars in the history of humanity has been over religion. Well, then if that's the case, so maybe we should have peacemakers in all the different camps to talk to each other, so we aren't fighting each other, you know. And so,
do you think that the response that you've got kind of speaks to a hunger that's sitting in a lot of people when they hear kind of the polarized discourse that we're having, to say we're having a hunger towards more unity and more communication, less disputation?
I think so, and I also think that the Book of Mormon is a perfect, one of my favorite passages in the Book of Mormon is when they talk, there are no more matter of ites.
No more ites. Yes.
And we have a 200-year proto-millennium that happens in the Book of Mormon. And to me, the Book of Mormon, and also my favorite story, which is at the dead center of the Book of Mormon, is the Anti-Nephi Lehi's, where they bury their weapons of war. Yeah. So at the very center of a war document, as the Book of Mormon is often referred to as, at the very center of this war document is the principles of the Prince of Peace. And so to me, it's like,
read your Come Follow Me assignment this week, because that's what it's about.
Oh, wow. That's great. I love it. So I think that the Book of Mormon can be a guide that can be used to exercise the principles of the Prince of Peace. And people get caught up in all the war and stuff that's in there. But we have periods of time where there was unity and there were no more matter of ites. Yeah. And I think that as a society, we need to strive to have no more matter of ites, whether it's Republicanites or Democratites and so forth.
When you talk about that, I think about the Apostle Paul, where he's landing in either Corinth or Thessalonica or Ephesus, and he's going to establish this little house church, but he's going to have Romans and slaves and women and Greeks, and you've got all of these people, and suddenly they're going to come together and eat. They're going to come together with all of their various backgrounds and be able to say, and somehow getting past the caste system and the different people that existed at that period of time, at Paul's time, and say, and at the end of this, we all sit down and eat, and we all sit down and have civil discourse. And not only that, give it 300 years and it takes over the Roman Empire. That sense of we want to be one really becomes the dominant force. So, no, I think that's a challenge. I think you guys need to be celebrated for the things that you're doing on that, because I think it's. I was hearing a prominent, maybe it's N.T. Wright, that was talking about the embarrassment of all of the divisions within Christianity. That is maybe our biggest black eye, is that we're not united by the Prince of unification, if you will.
And I believe that, because when you talk about connecting and things like that, and each individual religion trying to stand up for Christ or represent Christ, the problem is when you start fighting others, Christ is nowhere in that.
It's not about Christ at that
Are we really Christians if we're sitting here fighting? We've missed the whole point. Is there sometimes when people are fierce and you have to defend your faith? Absolutely. I don't mean you got to back down in any means. But most of the discourse in normal conversations can be peaceful if you guide it that way. I think the hard times of discussion are few and far between. But when we're fighting for truth, we're really only focused on ourselves. It's a more selfish version of conversation. And especially when you say, I'm fighting for the truth, if fighting is in your phrase to support truth, then we've already lost traction. Fighting should not be in that phrase in any way.
It's a little hard to have a civil discourse with somebody with a poster in their hand, screaming and yelling.
Yeah,
that is probably not the great time to be able to.
That's right. I think.
If I was on the fence, I don't know that would convert me to your religion.
So I see Steve envisioning the Utah Interfaith Forum as a bucket brigade, putting out the fire of contention throughout the religious land environment, right?
You know, our little effort here of just trying to be a light where there's a lot of darkness I really think it's important that we can show how we can look. I will never go to somebody and say, you need to change your views in order for me and you to be friends or whatever. And what's so fascinating is a lot of people don't realize a lot of the stuff I do is off the record. I do Zoom calls with married couples that are having a faith crisis. In 1 week, I'm talking to a 19-year-old Protestant who's moving into the Latter-day Saint church, is looking to convert. And then the next day I'm talking to a 22-year-old who wasn't evangelical, who converted to Mormonism and now is leaving Mormonism. I'm talking to both of them. And being able to be a safe space. So I can have people that are leaving the church and people that are joining the church that want to talk to me, to hear their story, and they feel that they can they can be treated with respect and dignity. And I'm not going to try to convert them or try to tell them to go in a different direction or try to look. I look at it this way. I don't think for a lot of people, they say that they judge other people's salvation based on their salvation experience. And it's like, and if it doesn't match up with my salvation experience, then their salvation experience is not valid. And I'm like, no, you need to. And then part of that has to do with an insecurity on their part. They got in their mind, like, especially when people leave, like some of the most anti-Catholic people there are people who are ex-Catholics who became like evangelical Christians.
That's right.
And so it's almost like they have to hate on something. And my whole argument is, in order for you to defend your faith or to promote your faith is to bash another person's faith, then you really don't have that strong of a faith. Your faith should stand on its own merits, and it should not mean that you have to go and destroy another person's faith to promote your faith. You're doing it all backwards, and it's devastating to people. It's hurtful to people, and just even the fact that we have this tradition of church splitting over, like in the 80s, we had the worship wars, where we literally had people fighting over the style of music and in the church services, and we'd have splits in there. And it's like, it's just crazy, all this nonsense that's now we look back at it and just see how ridiculous that is. But people's lives were devastated because of just minor theological differences. So it's not only just like evangelicals and Latter-day Saints, it's Methodists who are splitting, it's all these other groups that are splitting over all these things. And I'm just saddened by it, because I do believe that, the God, Jesus was going to return for a bride without spot or blemish and a unified people. And I don't think he's ready to come until we're able to get our act together as a community. And so I think it's on us. If people are wondering why Jesus hasn't returned yet, it's because we have to get our act together first.
That's right. Well, I can listen to Steve for hours, but thankfully it's usually at 2 or 3 times the speed, because I go to his podcast afterwards, and we wanted to let everybody know how to get to the Utah Interfaith Forum. So here's how you can find out more about Utah Interfaith, and we'll go to Steve's channel.
Okay, so you got Mormon book reviews.
You did it.
Which I see you're subscribed to. Thank you for being a subscriber. Now, if you scroll down.
Okay, now I can scroll down.
There we go. So scroll down.
And everybody scroll down to the bottom, and then there on featured.
Utah Interfaith Forum. And if you want to subscribe to my personal channel, Steve Pynakker, where I just goof around with the camera, you can do that too.
Oh, look at that. I could do that right there, just like that.
And now go to Utah Interfaith Forum.
Let me go to the whole thing there. There's what it looks like.
And that's it right there.
And then here's how you subscribe.
Yeah, why don't you now make sure you subscribe to Utah Interfaith Forum too. Thank you. Thank you for subscribing.
There you go.
And we do have some videos up that we've posted. And David Boyce kind of helped launch this, and this is just the beginning of the conversation, folks. And really, I want to encourage people to subscribe to UIF. I want people to get to know. One of the reasons I wanted to have this episode was I wanted people to get to know my new co-host Monica and the great work that she's doing. I want to honor her, and really, this Utah Interfaith Forum channel would not be here without her. And really excited. We're going to start releasing episodes soon. And looking forward to, and watch what we already have. My interview with David Boyce is exclusive on my channel on UIF, and that got 6,000 views. And David then, of course, since then has converted to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints from Protestantism. That's the faith journey he's on, and we need to honor it. And thank you for letting me come on to promote Monica and Utah Interfaith Forum.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that by the time I air this, Steve will have one of his first interviews with Monica up. And so everybody just double check. So look at this right now and then see if there's another podcast by the time we air.
Yep. Great.
So yes, thanks, Kevin, for co-hosting today. Thanks, Monica and Steve, for joining us. We're all excited about what the Utah Interfaith Forum can do. And we're titling this Utah Interfaith Forum Making Waves because Steve is done with the little waves from a pebble, and he's going for the full riptide coming up the rest of this year.
Yeah, making waves is, I don't even intend to make waves, but it seems like every now and then
You
I make future waves, and it's crazy. It's fun. And by the way, Kevin, I wanted to say you did a really good job co-hosting for the first time today.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
And
I'm incredulous at the work you guys are doing, and grateful to be part of that in any little way.
That's great. Thank you.
I'm gonna predict that if Kevin and I are ever in the same room together and we go on family search and we look for relatives around me, I'm gonna predict we're closer than seventh cousins. That's what I'm gonna predict. So we'll have to see if that ever happens.
Frightening, absolutely frightening.
Because this is a family show, and I want to bring in all my relatives to host and co-host. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Thanks everyone for watching. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
Bye now.